Welcome to the Hockeytown Rundown with your host, Nick Perry and Chase Sussex.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of the Hockeytown Rundown. I am joined, as always, by my excellent co-host, Mr. Nick Perry, and I am ready to dive into this week's episode. There's a lot going on. It's been a little bit of a slow week, but I think I'm still ready to dive right in. You ready to go, Nick?
Ready when you are, my friend.
All right, awesome. So we're gonna start off with a little bit of news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
So for the Red Wings, we have some big returns and some new debuts for the Red Wings. Mike Green has returned to the lineup after, due to an illness, he missed some time, and he is now ready to come back. He's in practice with the Red Wings, and he is now ready to go. He's back in the lineup and should be a big boost to that Red Wings defense.
Absolutely. I'm, for one, very excited to see Mike Green back on the ice. He contributed a lot to the Wings last year, so I'm hoping he can come back and get a jump start on what he left off on last year.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be great. I've seen some projected lines, and it looks like he's going to be paired up with our young defensive breakout, Mr. Dennis Cholowski. So that will be very exciting for him. I'm sure, he'll definitely benefit getting some play time with such a good defenseman like Mike Green.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at Mike Green, and he has such a excellent career, coming from Washington and coming from the other teams that he played for. And then you have Dennis Cholowski as a young upstart here on the team. And you look at the locker room, and a lot of the interviews that I've seen and a lot of the interviews that I've listened to, the whole locker room can't get enough of the kid. And they said that, he has such a great mentality and such a great presence. And, hearing that about a rookie has to be one of the greatest feelings in the world, especially if you're Dennis Cholowski.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Dennis says, he's got to be pretty excited for that in the locker room, for the guys to be able to get behind him like that, especially as a rookie. That's definitely exciting for him going forward. And, we'll be hopefully seeing a lot more of that production throughout the season. So next we can get into a debut. We are seeing the debut of Jacob De La Rose from the Montreal Canadiens. It looks like Christopher N was sent back down to Grand Rapids, so De La Rose will be filling in for him, and maybe he can get that Red Wings offense jump-started and maybe help this Red Wings team win some games.
I would absolutely love to see it. And you and I talked about it last week on the podcast, but he's a young kid who played 119 total games, only averaged 19 points. That's a little bit of a, what the heck were we thinking kind of moment. But if you put him in with this offensive and defensive core, I think his play style as a two-way player is going to shine, hopefully. So tonight will be a big test for the kid, and let's hope that he makes the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a change of scenery is always good for some guys, and it'll definitely be interesting to see if that kind of, a new fan base, a new arena in Detroit will allow him to adapt to and kind of, maybe brings more depth to this offense and, get us going instead of, just kind of keeping up his same sort of lackluster career so far. But we can only hope that he has a bright future here in Detroit.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of arenas, if you weren't aware, tonight was the last day that you could ever go to Joe Louis Arena. And, just seeing pictures and seeing videos, I mean, it's a sad sight to see such a iconic building looking like that. I mean, it's pretty much empty.
Yeah, it's pretty sad here. I mean, the Joe was such a big part of everyone's, early Red Wing career. I mean, everyone, when you get introduced to the Red Wings originally, it was, the Joe, it was the big center point behind everyone's, fan base. I mean, whether you went there or not, everyone sort of experienced the Joe in their own way. And I think, seeing it be getting ready to be torn down and just seeing pictures of the inside is just, it's awful just to kind of see that, because it's almost like your childhood is kind of, or like those memories and stuff like that are getting taken away. So
Absolutely. The Joe, to me, that was my second home. Seeing not only the Wings play there, but numerous concerts, and even stepping out on center ice and looking around. I mean, it's just amazing to see that it was such a small arena, but when you were sitting there, or even if you were playing on the ice, it looked like the biggest arena in Michigan. So I haven't been to Little Caesars yet. I'm excited to go, but I definitely won't enjoy it, because the whole time I'm there, I'll probably just be saying to myself, this would be a lot better if it was back at Joe Louis.
yeah, it's definitely going to be a little bit difficult. I have yet to go to the Little Caesar Arena either, but I would definitely be honored to kind of see what the new stadium's like. I'm sure it doesn't really hold the memories or the history of the Joe, but I'm willing to give it a chance. It's definitely sad to see the Joe Louis Arena go, but I'm excited for the future, and I feel like that a new arena sort of represents the new era of this Detroit Red Wings hockey team. So
Absolutely. And if the arena is anything like the team, it's going to be bright, it's going to be new, and I think the future is bright, not only for Little Caesars Arena, but for the Detroit Red Wings as a whole. And we do have a game tonight against Winnipeg, and hopefully we can snap our losing streak. And I know that Winnipeg is definitely coming in as the stronger of the teams. And like we covered last week, Dustin Byfuglien and Patrick Laine, they're putting up great numbers already. So it's going to be a test for our offense and our defense to try and keep them under the goal mark that they've been hitting the past couple of games.
yeah, absolutely. And the Red Wings just need a lot to change. There's a lot that Red Wings need to bring to the table tonight to Winnipeg. They've been on this massive losing streak. They did just win against Florida the other day, but they still just have not been able to kind of shake the skid of losing. And I'm sure it's getting to the fans, and it's got to be getting to some of the teammates too. I mean, it looks like some of the guys in the team are just really not happy with the effort that's being put on the ice. I've seen a lot of a lack of effort from a lot of these guys, especially veterans, which is disappointing to see, because these guys are supposed to be leaders of the team. These are the guys who are supposed to go out every night and set an example and, give it 110% every night. And they're just not doing that. They're not setting a good example for these young guys. And there's just no effort going around on either end of the ice.
Yeah, and I guess the greatest example of the kind of frustration is Nicholas Kronwall in a post-game interview after the game with Carolina. He said, in quote, "It's getting a little old coming in here and trying to explain things to you after games like this. It's madness what we are doing to ourselves. Carolina is a good team, but when you don't even play, it's tough to give yourself a chance."
And I mean, everything he's saying there is true. I mean, they have to go and, they constantly interviewing these guys, and they're saying, like, what do we have to do? Like, what do you guys have to do in order to, start winning games? And it's becoming difficult. It's becoming the same old thing. They're explaining the same old things, like getting, the same points. It's like, we got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this. And it's the same points every night. And, when he says, all the words he's saying there are, exactly true. I mean, Carolina is a good team, but I mean, Detroit has a good hockey team as well. But if you don't play, if you're not giving that effort, it's really tough to have a chance in the game. You really just got to go out and give 110% every night and really prove and show the fans that you're trying to win hockey games.
Absolutely. If you're not going out on the ice and playing your full 60, you have no reason to even put on the jersey, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of things, there's a lot of history behind that Red Wings jersey. And, to be able to put that on is a great honor. There's a lot of people you know, who are waiting to, who would kill to have that spot, would kill to have your roster spot, but if you're not showing the effort, then the Red Wings have shown that you can be scratched, you can be sent back down to Grand Rapids. They will do whatever it takes to be a winning hockey team. They're trying their best to make sure that their best guys are out there, and you know, so some of these guys, especially the veterans, need to step up.
Absolutely. So, on a very lighter note, for those of you who follow hockey as closely as Chase and I do, you know that there's a superstar out in New Jersey. His name is Brian Boyle, and he's been battling leukemia for a few years now. And leukemia is a part of my life too. Unfortunately, my brother just lost his battle with it, but hearing this definitely made me smile a little bit and brought a tear to my eye. But Mr. Boyle has fought and won against leukemia, and he says that his cancer is now in remission, and he's looking forward to getting back out on the ice as soon as possible.
And that's just awesome news to hear. You love to hear that. Hockey is, the NHL is definitely bigger than hockey. It's more than a sport. We always, even if Brian Boyle's a member of the Red Wings, it's always nice to hear that a fellow player is, he's doing good, is he's getting healthy. It's glad to hear for him and his family. I'm sure that time was just definitely tough to go through, but he's a superstar in hockey, and he's a superstar in real life. I mean, he's getting back in, he's getting healthy, and yeah, he's coming back to play. So that's super exciting. A big piece for the Devils there. It's going to be awesome to see him back. And I'm sure New Jersey's happy to have him back too.
Absolutely. So on that note, Chase, how do you feel about us taking a look here at other games going on around the hockey world?
Yeah, it sounds good. Let's move into our next section, which is our weekend review and our standings update.
Okay, now what happened?
Week in review.
All right. So, first off, I want to say, as I did last week, if you guys want to check out some good minor league hockey, there's plenty of teams not only in Michigan, but the lower 48. And one of those leagues is the Southern Professional Hockey League. Got a few games going on tonight, and if you want to check those out, it's sphllive.com. So the Wings are off to, I want to say, probably the worst start that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Chase, how are you feeling about the Wings right now at this point in time?
I'm really not feeling good. I mean, I saw a report. This is the worst start for the Red Wings in about 33 years. I mean, that is a long time. I mean, that's got to be. I mean, this has been some poor hockey from this hockey team, and just they, like we mentioned before, there's just a lack of effort. I mean, you don't put the effort in. I mean, you're not going to win hockey games. It's definitely just been a tough start for the season for them. Hopefully, they can turn it around. But it's been kind of a slow week for the Red Wings. But like we said, we're playing tonight. The early game we played this year, or this season, this week, was played against Carolina, and that was a 3-1 loss with Andreas Antonopoulos scoring the lone goal there in Carolina. And then we have a game on Sunday against Dallas, which is at 5 p.m. So just one more game this weekend before we jump into next week's action. But we can take a quick look over our standings here. Again, the Red Wings have a lot of catching up to do here, with Toronto still at the top with 12 points, Tampa with 11, Montreal with 10, Boston with 10, Buffalo with 10, Ottawa has 9, Florida has 5, and the Red Wings are at the bottom of the barrel with 4 points.
Yeah, it's very disappointing to see such a storied franchise, look bottom of the barrel and 4 points, and it brought up an interesting topic of conversation that I had before we started this podcast. Do you feel that the dead wing era is coming back?
It's quite possible. I mean, this has got to be the worst start since that era. I mean, that's just, we and unfortunately it's just a tough time, and it's quite possible that we could definitely see that kind of era come back, and we definitely don't want that for our franchise. We obviously want just a quick time war on that rebuild. We want to make sure it's quick, but it's also thorough at the same time. We just want to make sure that this team is fully ready to start winning games, but hopefully it won't take too long before they're back in the win column in that playoff conversation.
Absolutely. I'd hate to say anything about the Dead Wings because I know that was a very, very dark time to be a Detroit sports fan, but all teams go through it, and hopefully we don't have to go through it for that long.
Yeah, exactly. We can only hope. All right, so I think we can transition to our next section, which is Wings Up, Wings Down.
Wings up, wings down.
This is definitely an exciting segment for us this week. I think we've got some, we got some really good players in here, man. Some not so good ones either. So we can start off with our first player in our Wings Up section, which is Andreas Athanasiou.
Yeah, I mean, he is on a tear right now, and I know that's kind of speaking real highly of him, but I can't get enough of this kid. He's probably the second speediest person on the ice other than Dylan Larkin. I mean, you get the puck on his stick, and he's just by you no matter what. He scored the Wings' only goal in the loss to Carolina, and honestly, it was a beautiful goal if you really looked at it and looked at the film. He's second on the team in goals with 3. He's third in points with 5, and he's showing a lot of improvement from last year. And I know that there was a lot of talk coming from Detroit last year on a contract holdout and this whole arbitration thing, but personally, I'm glad to see, number 72 back on the ice.
Yeah, it's definitely great. I'd love to see him in that wind wheel. There was definitely some conversations he was going to go overseas, and that was some rough water for them. I mean, I was really surprised that they were holding out so long on a contract extension for Athanasiou, but I'm glad to see that they were able to sign him because he's been a big impact for this Red Wings offense, and I hope he continues to do so this season.
Absolutely. So the next player that we have, which is absolutely no surprise, we covered him last week in our Rising Star, is young Dennis Cholowski.
Yeah, Cholowski's been a standout player. I mean, he is just, I cannot get enough of him, and clearly his teammates cannot get enough of him either. Just less than 10 games into his career, Cholowski's already emerged as a huge building block, a very promising building block in the future of this Detroit franchise. He already has 2 goals and 3 assists through his 9 games so far this season. And their win over Florida, he logged a goal and an assist, and he played 20 minutes and 23 seconds. And he currently leads the entire Red Wings team in terms of defensemen in ice time, which just goes to show you how well he's been playing. He's definitely, he's been playing so well, and just good plays is deserving of more ice time. So, but just as a player, I mean, he's so aggressive. He isn't fazed by mistakes. He's always wanting the puck, even because usually when guys make mistakes, you're like, oh, you want to not have him have the puck. I won't want the puck back. But he's always like, give me the puck. He's always ready to start a new play. He makes his decisions are smart. His decisions are also speedy. He's able to make those quick decisions, and that's what makes him such a a good rookie for this team. I mean, he's definitely emerging as one of their better defensemen.
Absolutely. And I mean, you look at the games that he did play, I mean, he has such a quick release on that stick. He's able to get the puck into these hard to get areas of the net, and he's even able to, make these amazing half rink passes, these saucer passes, and that all goes back to hockey IQ, and he had such a great excuse me, a great development going through Grand Rapids and going through juniors, and he has such a big upside, and I know he has some pretty big skates to fill. Pardon the pun, but he definitely is showing a lot of promise, and I'm really excited to see what the future holds for young Mr. Chalowski.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, his teammates are very excited to have him contributing on the team as well. Teammate Thomas Vanek mentioned in an interview that Chalowski already has a great hockey IQ and has excellent patience. And even though he's a quiet kid, he's very confident in his play. He's confident in himself, which is always good. It's good to hear as a rookie. You're always excited to hear that guys are ready to come in and contribute, and that's exactly what you want from Shalowski. He said in an interview that his ability to make quick decisions is part of his game. He said, and quote, it's a part I try to utilize as much as I can, just being able to visualize the ice and find guys everywhere and move the puck quick. He also said about his ability to kind of shake off mistakes. He said, you can't be afraid of making a mistake or nothing is going to happen. You're just going to play conservative, and that's not going to help anybody. You have to be able to try and make those plays, and sometimes they're not going to work. We have to deal with that, and that's just definitely such a good mentality. He's got such a high hockey IQ according to Thomas Vanek, and he's got a good mentality going forward, which is such a good thing to hear for a kid as young as him. You can definitely see a future leader on defense there for the Red Wings.
Absolutely. I mean, he reminds me a lot of Nicholas Lidstrom. I mean, Lidstrom went out on the ice every night, and he wasn't afraid to, make those stupid plays and, give the puck away, because he was always ready to get right back on defense and stop a, breakaway or stop a chance in front of the net. And, he was such a core staple to the defense at that time, and I really think that Chalowski has a little bit of Lidstrom in him, and I really hope that he can, pull that out a little bit more and keep making the plays that he's doing, because, the Wings as a whole, they're very exciting as a team, and the future of the team definitely is going to be headlined by, Dylan Larkin, Andreas Anthony, and I can definitely see Dennis Chalowski fitting in there, no problem at all.
100% agree with that. Super excited for the future for that kid. But now we're going to have to transition into some Red Wings who just did not play very well this week. It's a little disappointing to see some of these guys in this list, but our first Wings down is going to be Anthony Mantha.
Yeah, and I'll just say this. Where is Anthony Mantha? Obviously not the same player that I'm used to seeing on the ice anymore. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if, he broke up with his girlfriend or, he stubbed his toe before getting out on the ice. But this is kind of embarrassing to see from the young gun here.
Yeah, it's definitely just not, what you're expecting from him. I mean, and, Coach Blashless kind of commented on this, and he said, it's not out of the ordinary. I mean, he struggled a little bit last season to get going, and it's just really unfortunate to kind of see that. This is a big piece, or this is supposed to be a big piece of this Red Wings offense. He was supposed to be a big contributor. I mean, big in his size and his scoring ability, but he just has not shown that ability at all to even make any kind of impact on offense. Entering Carolina on Monday, Mantha was at a team worst minus 12 in plus minus, and he had only recorded 3 points. He's dropped down the line, and it might be one of those things where would it be smart for the Red Wings to maybe sit Mantha and maybe help give him a healthy scratch and kind of give him a little bit to, reset his mentality and get readjusted?
I think about it this way: if your experienced players aren't playing the way that you expect them to, because in hockey you definitely hold the more seasoned guys to a higher standard, and if they're not playing to the standards that you set out for them, then yeah, you got to sit them. You got to hammer down that point that if you're not going to play to these high standards, we're going to get someone younger in here who, is killing for the roster spot, killing for the ice time, and we're going to show you that this is what happens when you don't do your job.
Yeah, I definitely think that's definitely a big piece there. I think that maybe it would be beneficial. I also think it would be beneficial for our other player on our wings down section, which is Justin Abdelkader. I mean, he has just not been playing well. I mean, he's just been absolutely absent from the offense. He has been taking costly penalties. Most importantly, that goaltender interference call that took away Michael Rasmussen's first NHL goal. He's just not representing that A on his jersey very well right now. He's got some high standards set as an alternate captain, and he really just is not. He's not performing those standards at all. He doesn't have any desire to go out and make plays, like we said earlier. He just has showed no effort whatsoever. And maybe the Red Wings need to sit him too. Maybe he needs to be someone who they consider, sitting down on the bench and saying, "Listen, you got to earn your play time, and you're not setting a good example for some of our young guys." I mean, I think it would definitely be a wake up call for him and some of the other rookies on the team as well.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have the A on your sweater, I mean, that's pretty much saying, okay, you're a top guy and you got to go out there and you got to perform like one. And to me, Abdelkader, he was great when he was, just starting out, 08, 09. And I definitely think that we saw a gradual decline from him through the years, and I definitely feel that he's not representing the A on his sweater anymore. And personally, I feel that we should strip it away from him in order to prove a point. Because you're used to seeing Abdelkader, on the second and first line on a good day, and he slowly made his way down the depth chart and even on the practice squad, and he has gone down to fourth line. And I definitely feel that if we don't bench him, we should strip that A and give it to somebody who, in my opinion, is more deserving of it, and that person is going to be covered in our Rising Star Spotlight.
He is so awesome.
Rising Star Spotlight.
Yeah, I mean, our Rising Star Spotlight for this week is somebody, in my opinion, who has been kind of a silent workhorse for the Red Wings. He hasn't really been too flashy, but he definitely has been putting the work in, and that is Gus Nyquist. He leads the team in assists with 6, and most of the time you're not really seeing those guys who are getting assists. There's some, they're kind of some of those behind the scenes guys. It's usually the people who are scoring the goals who are getting all the the main focus. But assists are definitely something people need to need to look at and say, look, this guy is a real contributor on this hockey team. He's tied for first with points with Dylan Larkin on the team with 7, and that's a big step up for a guy who's been kind of middle of the tier. So for him to be tied with Dylan Larkin in points right now is definitely impressive. He's shown a lot of growth this season, and I'm really excited for that, because if he continues to contribute, I'm excited for the future of the Red Wings offense.
Absolutely. And he was one of the guys when he first came in, everybody was kind of like, who is he? What's he going to do? And he, proved to us that he was going to come here and he was ready to play. And, last year he was putting up, double digits with, points, and, he's on slate now to have, a record season with points and everything. And if he keeps, feeding the puck to the teammates that are, in front of the goal and in the slot. I mean, I can't wait to see what's next for Gus. And, like I said in the previous segment, strip Abdelkader the A because he doesn't deserve it. But looking at it right now and looking at the play style that, this young man has played with last year and even his rookie season, I mean, this guy, if you look at someone who's deserving of A on his jersey, I really think Gus Nyquist is your guy.
Yeah, that'll definitely be a topic that we can get into later in the podcast. But for right now, let's kind of just take a quick look at our week ahead preview.
Next week's preview.
So tonight we have a game. We have the game that'll be against the Winnipeg Jets at 7:30. That should be, like we said, a shootout for the Red Wings tonight. On Sunday, they will stay at home against Dallas. That'll be their last game at home before they head back on the road for a game, and that'll be at 5 p.m. on the 28th. Then on Tuesday, October 30th, they'll head over to Columbus and they'll play the Blue Jackets at 7 p.m. Another team that they can look to get some revenge on. They dropped that first matchup to Columbus, but they'll look to seek retribution, maybe trump them in this next matchup for this next game. Then on Thursday, on November 1st, we have another home game against the New Jersey Devils. As we talked about earlier, Brian Boyle will be hopefully in the roster for that game after coming back from fighting leukemia. So that'll be exciting to see him on the ice during that game. And then on Saturday, the November 3rd, the Red Wings again will play at Little Caesars Arena against the Edmonton Oilers and Mr. Oh-so-scary Connor McDavid at 7 p.m.
Yeah, that's going to be a interesting matchup for sure because I was watching Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby put on an absolute clinic in the last matchup that they were a part of. And if Connor McDavid plays anything like he did against Pittsburgh, we're going to have a real chore on our hands trying to contain him.
100% agree. So is there any other matchups you're looking at for this next upcoming week? Is there anything you want to highlight?
Well, Nashville is coming off a loss to San Jose, and they are at home tonight. So that's going to be a interesting matchup for me, being from the Nashville area.
All right, yeah, that'll be an exciting game to look forward to. So now we can transition into our next segment, which will be our Ford Tough question of the week.
Let me ask you a question.
Ford Tough Question of the Week.
All right, and our question today is a controversial one we talked about a little bit earlier in the podcast. Does Justin Abdelkader deserve to have the A on his jersey? What are your thoughts about that, Nick?
Oh man, I could go on forever, but for podcast sake, I'm just gonna say no. His play style is slow. It's lazy. He's not contributing on key plays. I mean, sometimes he'll, have himself a breakaway or have himself, a good scoring opportunity, but he hasn't capitalized on any of them. And it just seems to me that he's lazy on and off the puck, and it seems like half the time he doesn't even want to be on the ice.
Yeah, I can definitely see your point there, but for me, I think it's a little bit hard to say that as of right now in the season, it's a little bit early. So personally, I don't think the Red Wings should be quite ready to just take that A away from him. While his bad play definitely isn't deserving of more ice time, I think Abdelkader definitely brings a certain aspect to this team still, including a veteran presence for some of the younger guys. He definitely brings still a lot of leadership to that locker room. I think there's definitely a reason why the Red Wings gave him the A on that jersey, and he may not be showing the ice right now, but I just don't think a rough start on offense for the season is enough for me to remove the A from his jersey just quite yet. my decision or my opinion might change coming up throughout the season if I continue to see poor play, and maybe the locker room. I doubt the locker room would turn on him, but maybe if the coach, Coach Blashill decides that maybe the lack of offensive contribution is enough for him to get that A off his jersey, then we might see it. It's definitely a possibility. I saw some rumors going around that Abdelkader could even be made captain this year with the lack of a captain and after Henrik Zetterberg's retirement. So that'll definitely be, we're definitely far away from that whole conversation because he does not look like a candidate for the captain coming up.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you there. I mean, it's too early in the season to tell whether we should strip him or not. But given his play style already, it's really hard for me to say that we should keep this guy on and keep the A on his jersey. But time will tell with everybody on the team. So we can see even Nicholas Kronwall being brought into the conversation if, his play style decides to go down. It's just all a matter of time, and it's all a matter of, who wants it more and the whole next man up mentality. So, definitely Coach Blashill and Ken Holland have some tough decisions on their hands, and that's why, they're in the positions that they are, making more money than we are. And, that's why we're here running a podcast. But we definitely will touch on Justin Abdelkader. Probably let's give it about a month, and let's see if he improves in a month's time, and we can come back to this because
I think
definitely right now that's something that we can't really speculate too much on right now. So we'll give it about a month. We'll look at it, compare some notes, and we'll see if Mr. Abdelkader definitely deserves that A.
Yeah, I think that'll definitely be a good conversation coming up. I think it's a good timetable for a little bit of just taking a close eye on him. He's definitely going to have the someone looking over his shoulder, I think, coming up. I mean, we definitely just got to keep a close eye on him, and we'll evaluate him at a future date. So that is, the questions that we come up with. But now we are going to answer a couple of questions that you guys, the listeners, have come up with. So now it is time to segue into our next segment, which is the mailbag.
Mailbag.
I'm so excited about this. Thank you guys so much for reaching out on Twitter, reaching out on Facebook. If you don't know, we are Michigan Sports and Entertainment. We do have Twitter. He's Chase Sussex. I'm Nick Perry on Twitter. My name is backwards, so it's Perry_Nick. But you can find us. We're on almost all the time. So if you guys ever have questions, comments, concerns, anything at all, do like these guys did, hit us up, and we'll get through as many appropriate ones as we can and read them right here on the air like we're doing right now. So Chase, if you want to start this off, the floor is all yours.
All right. So our first question is from our very own Braxton Crisp. He asks, is the leash on Blashill any shorter now than it was before the regular season started? I definitely think that, his leash may be a little bit shorter, but, I think it's still a little bit too early to tell. In the preseason, he looked very good. The coaching, during the preseason was excellent. They had a really good record in the preseason, but of course, that's just, those games don't matter. It's just preseason. So now that they've kind of got off this rough start, he's sitting on the hot seat a little bit more, but I don't really think the Red Wings should make any big decisions yet. But he also asked the question, how much leniency does Blashill get given the injuries to the defensive starters? And I think we do see a little bit of leniency. I think we do need to cut him some slack here and just say, listen, he's faced a lot of injuries this season. Unfortunately, there's nothing he can do about that. this team has just bit the injury bug. So unfortunately, there isn't really much he needs to do about that, or he can do about that. But they just need to adapt and just use that next man up mentality. And he needs to work with the players that he has. He has Mike Green coming back. So with some of these guys returning, some of these defensive guys who are returning from injury, once we get Jonathan Erickson and Danny DeKaiser back from injury, hopefully we will see the Red Wings start to get back on track. And then if with his starters back, he still isn't able to perform, maybe we have to kind of, give up on that leniency and say, hey, you've got all your guys back and, you're still not performing. We got to, there might need to be some moves that need to be made there.
Absolutely. And for me, looking at Blashill, I mean, last year was definitely a year for him. He had some success and then, ultimately lost, some pivotal games. And this year, is off to a slow start, but I don't think you need to light the fire underneath him yet because it's still too early in the season. And I definitely feel that coaches, especially someone like Blashill, they take time to develop and get the right combination of guys down. But I definitely feel like Ken Holland is keeping a close eye on day-to-day operations. And personally, I feel like Blashill, he's making some good calls right now, definitely getting Jacob De La Rose in and getting, Mike Green back are going to be great boosts to this team. So let's hope that Blashill can keep on doing what he's doing. Because if he can't, then I definitely feel that change should come, and it should come quickly.
All right, so let's move into our next question from Mr. Seth Berry. What will it take to convince us that the Red Wings are going in the right direction? That's definitely an interesting question, a very good question. Personally, I do think that the Red Wings are headed in the right direction. I don't really think there's much convincing that I need to have done, at least in my opinion. I feel like the Red Wings are making a lot of steps in the right direction, with Holland's drafting getting a lot better, especially with the drafting of Philip Zadina in the offseason. I think that was such a huge piece in the transformation of this franchise. I don't think, I think the rebuild was definitely a big part of this team. They definitely needed it. I wasn't someone who was necessarily against the rebuild. So I think going in the rebuild was the right direction. And I do believe that this team has a bright future. So right now I'm convinced. I'm not sure if you have the same opinion as me, but let's see what you have to say, Nick.
Well, from the get-go, I have a hockey player's mentality, so I'm a little biased on these things, but I will push my bias aside, and I will simply say that in any team, any league, I mean, you look at, the Cleveland Indians, you look at the Detroit Tigers, you look at the Boston Red Sox, or, any other team that has a storied history to it. They had good seasons, they had bad seasons, and eventually there comes a point in time where you have to stop everything and go from the ground up. And, that started with the Red Wings saying, okay, we want to move from Joe Louis to Little Caesars to kind of close the book on, that era of the Red Wings. The Yzerman era is over, the Zetterberg era is over, and we want to have a new arena for all the young guns who are going to lead our team. And I think that the Wings are going in an amazing direction with all the young talent they drafted and the young talent that they're developing. So to answer your question, I personally feel like the Red Wings are doing everything right. They're just not fully putting it together on the ice right now, but that'll come in time.
All right, so we will move on to our next question from Dustin Whitehead, who asks, I should say, do we think that Jeff Blashill um, do we think that Steve Eiserman takes over for the Wings at GM next season? I don't think we want Jeff Blashill at GM, but
Oh,
do
absolutely
we think
not.
but do we think Steve Eiserman will take over for the Wings at GM next season?
Oh man, the universal question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this has got a lot of controversy swirling around. We definitely heard a couple weeks ago that he stepped down from his general manager role in Tampa Bay, and that was definitely a big, a big point there that people are pointing out. And they're saying, "Listen, he's coming back to Detroit. He's getting closer to family. He's taking on an advisor role. His contract is almost up in Tampa Bay, with this season being his last year in his contract. So, is it possible that?" Uh, Steve Eiserman takes over as GM for Ken Holland, and I think my answer is it's quite possible. I can't necessarily give a definitive yes or no because I really don't know, but there's a lot of signs pointing to yes. I personally would love it to see Steve Eiserman back here in Detroit. He has shown that he is an excellent general manager. He's done a great job with that Tampa Bay franchise, and I would love to see that kind of success come back here in Detroit. We were a little bit surprised to hear that he stepped down because he was being, because he had such a successful career in Tampa Bay. People had been chanting for Eiserman to come back, and everyone was asking why would he come back. He's doing such a good job in Tampa Bay, and he seems satisfied with his job. But now he came back to Detroit, and he's just an advisory role now in Tampa Bay, and it's quite possible that we see Steve Eiserman in Detroit as the general manager next season.
Absolutely. And coming into this podcast and this episode, my answer was a firm no. But hearing you talk and, looking at some of the conversations that a lot of these insiders are having, I mean, the way that I see it, I mean, Eiserman was drafted here, out of Peterborough. He played for the Petes, and he, grew up playing the game with some of the greatest players. He was on the ice with Gordie Howe. He played with Wayne Gretzky, and he was part of the whole success of the Red Wings in the late 80s and 90s. And he decided to go to Tampa Bay to, get a taste of the general manager role. But, home is where the heart is, and I definitely feel that, Stevie left his heart in Detroit, and I definitely feel that he is listening to the fans and listening to his family. I know a lot of interviews years ago with his wife and his kids. They love Detroit, they love the culture, they love the people, and if he is really a man of his word, then he will do what's best for the family and come back home. And I'd definitely love to see him fill in the GM position, because I feel that he can take some lessons that he learned in Tampa Bay with that franchise and bring them over here, and we can see the Red Wings maybe not be a Stanley Cup competitive team yet, but definitely a playoff team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think he brings sort of mentality to Detroit, and that would definitely be an exciting thing. We've definitely seen a mixed reaction to the GM tenure of Ken Holland here in Detroit, and he served a long time in Detroit, but maybe it's time to give him a good farewell and save the seat for Mr. Stevie Y. But I think the biggest thing that comes down to it is Holland's new contract. He recently just signed that 2-year extension in the off season, or in the middle of last season, I should say. So that'll definitely be a big point there, whether the Red Wings are going to stay through his whole contract and commit through him for the full 2 years, or if they're just going to, get rid of him after this season. If the Red Wings continue to play at the rate that they are, it'd definitely be interesting to see what they decide to do. So
Absolutely. I can't say for sure, it's a lock. We're going to get him, but, like you said, and like everybody else is saying, it would be great to see him back in Detroit.
yeah, definitely. All right, so we can move into our final question. Mr. Brett Riley asks, what does it take for an NHL team to win a hockey game, and what is Detroit doing wrong that is preventing them from winning? This is a really, really good question from Brett. What does it take for an NHL team to win a hockey game? That's kind of a very vague question, but it's also a very good question. There's a lot of things that the Red Wings aren't doing that is preventing them from winning hockey games. And I think, like we said earlier in the podcast, I think that number one thing is effort. I think there's a lack of effort. I think there's a lack of communication with this hockey team. And for whatever reason, this team just isn't gelling. There are a lot of younger guys who aren't used to playing in the main roster. And, this isn't the same Red Wings team we've seen as of late. And, they're just not playing at that level quite yet. And, I think that lack of effort and, losing games is never really good for your confidence. But still, that lack of effort is really hurting this hockey team. And if they don't, start putting in some more work, I think this entire season is really going to be a struggle.
Absolutely. And, for me, I take a look at it, and, I've followed the Red Wings closely for years, and another team that I've followed for years is the Nashville Predators. And this isn't a Nashville podcast, so I apologize for bringing them up so much, but I want to use them as an example really quick because I talked about them last week, and they're the perfect example of a team that had nothing going right and then started getting all the building blocks together. And to win hockey games, you need to not only have all your lines communicating and gelling as a full unit, because in hockey, yeah, you have 4 lines, but when you're on the ice and when you're communicating with one, your line mate or your defenseman, it becomes a full line. It's not 4 lines, it's just one, and each guy can do their thing and communicate and know what their line mate's doing. They know when to pass, they know when to shoot, they know when to, do drop passes or dump it in or what have you. And the Nashville Predators have shown that they took lessons from Peter Laviolette and put them together to form that unit, to form the coherentness on the ice. And, they've been to the Stanley Cup final. They've been to the playoffs. They've won the Western Conference. They've won the President's Cup. And that, I think, is what the Wings need to do. They need to find the camaraderie, if I can talk, but they need to find the camaraderie between themselves and between themselves in the locker room to say, hey, this is what we need to do. We need to do it now. I want you to talk to him more. I need to talk to you more. We need to figure out where these passes are going, how these plays are going to get set up, where we're going on the ice, because we're making some stupid plays. We're giving the puck away. So once the Wings can talk amongst themselves in the locker room, on the ice, start making good play calls on the fly, start actually, dictating the game better from ice level, I think, then we'll start getting the pucks to the net. And then, that's the number one thing right now for the Wings, is they're just not getting pucks to the net. And I think that's, brought back to the whole communication thing. But if you can have your young guys and your veteran guys like Abdelkader, Cronwall, communicate with the young guys to where they all know what's going on at all times, then, the pucks to the net will happen, and eventually they'll start putting together these winning streaks because everybody is going to be confident because they all know what's going on. They're all comfortable with one another. And from the winning streaks, come the playoff runs, and from the playoff runs come the Stanley Cup. But, right now it's baby steps, and I think that the number one thing that the Wings are doing wrong is they're not communicating. Because, like I said, you have a bunch of young guys who need to earn their place, and you have a lot of veterans, and I don't know if it's the rookie hazing to where, hey, we're not going to tell you what the hell's going on, or we're going to go out on the ice and you guys fend for yourselves. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if that's even the case in hockey anymore. I haven't played for years, but that's the way it was for me. But that's really hard for me to try and figure out what they're doing wrong. But I guess to sum it all up, it's communication. You got to know what you're doing on the ice at all times. You got to know what your teammates are doing, and you got to know, okay, it's all right to, take this puck to the net, or hey, let me hold up, because when you're going out there night after night after night and giving up breakaways, giving up, scoring opportunities, you're not performing to, the standards of wearing that winged wheel. And, it's definitely showing right now with this team. And I definitely feel that somebody needs to step up in the locker room and, kind of bust these guys' chops a little bit and just kind of wake everybody up.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. I think this team is definitely a lot farther away than some other teams in terms of a playoff race. But like you said, baby steps, and we can only hope to get closer and closer every game. And like I said, I think the future of this team is bright. Hopefully, the future of this season is bright. Hopefully, we can get a little bit more positive on these podcasts. But
right. I actually just got a question emailed to me from the Detroit Red Wings fan page on Facebook. I can't give an actual name on who gave me this question because it came as a group message. So to answer your question, the question being, at what point in time did the Red Wings start their decline? Was it when, Lidstrom left? Was it when Yzerman left? That's their question. And I wanted to hand that one off to you, Chase, because personally, I don't know. And I wanted to get your thoughts about when you feel that the Wings hit their kind of downslope on everything.
I feel like their decline would definitely sort of began when Pavel Datsyuk ended up leaving the team. I felt like that was sort of like the end of like an era almost. There were still a couple of pieces, but once that duo of Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg, kind of, ceased to exist on that hockey team, it was just unfortunate to see that. I mean, Pavel had a great career here, and I feel like, I feel like that was definitely the end of that era here in Detroit. I feel like that was kind of like that 2015 was when he ended up leaving the Red Wings, and that was like I think the main focal point of almost like, I shouldn't necessarily say the break apart of this team, but again, like I've said, the end of an era. It's when it was towards the end of the Red Wings playoff streak. And unfortunately, I feel like that's when sort of things came to an end. And it's honestly sad to hear about that, having it be so recently. But I think that 2016 area where, Pavel left the team, and, Zetterberg and Cronwell were really kind of left to be the last, remembrances of that era. I think that was definitely when this team started to go downhill.
Yeah, that was definitely a tough time for Red Wing fans because, Datsyuk was, on track to possibly be the next captain and he was going out on the ice and putting out some amazing numbers and doing amazing things, being the Magic Man, doing all his Datsuki and Deeks. But for me, I feel like the kind of downfall of the team came post-lockout era, where they implemented the salary cap, because we decided as a franchise to focus more on trying to get these big name players and extend contracts that weren't that great, that we kind of overlooked player development. So for me, it was the whole post lockout era, and I definitely feel like the salary cap has kind of put a lot of NHL franchises, not only the Red Wings, and kind of that whole, roster crunch, to where, they want to get these big names in, but they want more money than we can pay them out. So instead of getting, the players in who want to play for us, we're taking players that really shouldn't be here and, offering them, 4 or 5 year extensions, when we can go out and sign somebody who wants to play for a year, at, $1 million, $2 million cheaper. So, to me, that was the whole time period. I think that was late 2010, 2011, when the Red Wings kind of hit that bump in the road, but you didn't really see the full effects until the end of the playoff run.
All right, so that concludes our mailbag section. We appreciate everyone who sent in questions for this week. Keep sending your questions in. The Hockeytown Rundown now has an official Twitter page, which is just at Hockeytown Rundown. So be sure to look that up. Be sure to send your questions to that Twitter. Be sure to send questions to me or send questions to Nick, and we will get those answered on a future podcast. Get excited for next week's episode. We definitely have some big news to talk about, including that new possible broadcasting network that Chris Illich has, brought up in the last couple days. So that'll be an interesting topic for next week. But we appreciate everyone who was listening to this week's podcast, and we hope to see you guys next week. So, we hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night, and go Red Wings.
Yeah, go Red Wings. Thank you guys so much for contributing to this podcast, Michigan Sports and Entertainment. We can't thank you guys enough. All the guys behind the scenes. Thank you, Chase, for, going into editor mode and getting this on iTunes and everywhere else every single week. We got an amazing team of guys, and this is our baby. So, thank you, listeners. Thank you, Detroit. And let's all go have some pizza, have some beer, and let's watch the Wings game, shall we?
Yes, sir.
All right. See you next week, guys.